Meow! Hoople's cat. Climate, change, humans, California, wildfires, water levels. Stay tuned for an interesting video. I'm recording this on November 21st. Currently there's 84 people dead from the Californian wildfires during their rainy season, and there's 800 missing, presumed dead, presumed hiding, who knows. For sure this is a massive catastrophe, a massive localized SHTF that's harming California. And as you see from these pictures, the smoke from California is now affecting the eastern seaboard, over 3,000 miles away, and certainly air quality is a huge concern for preppers in any sort of nuclear war or firestorm event like this. And it just shows you how much smoke is being produced from the Californian fires. You can see that from the satellite imagery, but I'm trying to think of the last time the eastern seaboard had severe smoke smog due to a Californian wildfire, and I'm coming up empty. Now it's sad. I'm not going to dwell too much on these imageries. I think we've all seen them. The fire is massive in scale, massive in death, and massive in outcome. And realistically speaking, the question is how to best help the people. But it almost immediately became a political discussion about climate change, which is inane. There is no political discussion to be had about human-caused climate change. It's a scientific fact, and people that keep denying it for various reasons really and truthfully are doing a disservice to their own intellect and to people. The planet is definitely warming up. So this graph here, you can see California's top wildfires. This is not cyclical. This is becoming exponential. It is becoming exponential because of three major factors. California is becoming hotter and drier, and its population is increasing, and the third factor is the exploitation of water from California in the form of agricultural produce. This slide here shows you why people like myself are very, very concerned about the current fires. They're happening in the rainy season, the wet season. California had a 4-year drought that ended in 2017. As you can see, fires, generally speaking, don't happen in November. Will we see fires in December? Possibly. It's an extremely rare event. Now, of course, the campfire is still ongoing, so we'll have to wait and see if it becomes yet another historic, unprecedented 1,000-year fire in California that seems to be happening every year or two. You can see the destruction here of the current fire, one of many fires in California, the Camp Fire. Even now, this destruction is becoming an absolutely horrific and clear indicator that people need to take climate change and wildfires much more seriously than perhaps they have in the past. So leaving a lot of stuff aside, which we are going to come to, forest fires need dry and warm environments, and as you can see, California is becoming hotter and drier. This slide shows you the average May to October temperatures and participation during the traditional wildfire season. Just to bear in mind, November and December are not wildfire seasons. As you can see from the slide, since 2000, California is becoming abnormally hotter and drier. This is not a natural cycle. It does not mirror previous natural cycles. It is a new normal. The only one I'm going to do in this one, because I understand people don't like slides because they present facts, and facts are hard to argue with and upset people's personal bias. But this shows that carbon dioxide is rising in our atmosphere and is rising faster and faster as we decide to become more and more industrialized throughout the planet, and decide to have more and more people, and decide to use more and more plastic and more stuff. And carbon dioxide is a method of heat entrapment for the atmosphere that will entrap heat. The sun produces radiation, heat, energy, goes into the atmosphere, keeps our planet nicely warm, and then radiates back out again. Most of it can't radiate out again and we all die. At the moment, less can radiate out than is coming in. The heat balance engine is out of kilter, so we're rising our global temperatures year by year. Primal assures me that it isn't a drought in California. California does not have a drought. It has had a drought for 2 years. Well, that's not true. The drought ended in the early part of 2017, so you're talking about a year and a half, Joe, not 2 years. And he assures me it's to do with forestry fire practices and land use and water use practices. And that's comforting if you want to believe that human-caused climate change isn't a thing, and very comforting if you want to believe that California is a survivable place to live. The US Bureau of Reclamation, which is controlled by President Trump, believes that they'll probably be declaring a critical water shortage in California in September of 2019. And initially they're going to reduce water supply to, I believe, Nevada and Arizona. The water supply mainly comes from the Colorado River, Lake Mead and Lake Powell. Currently, Lake Powell is 49% full and Lake Mead is 38% full. So that's kind of important. Now, one of the issues is that they will actually declare a critical water shortage once Lake Mead falls beneath a water level of 1,775 feet. Currently, the level is 1,778 feet, and it is in fact Nevada, Arizona and Mexico that will have their water supply cut in the first announcement of the critical phase. Now, because this is the rainy season, they're not anticipating having to do this until at the end of summer next year. We will see. So this water system supplies around about just over 40 million people. If it can't give them enough water, their standard of life is going to drop dramatically. And there will be immigration out of Mexico and California and Nevada and Arizona if the water supply fails. Currently, the water supply is failing. So you've got about 13 months before the US Southwest and Mexico faces severe critical water shortages from this issue. About 30 months, or we can all chill out and relax. Well, we can't, can we? It's coming. We're preppers. Face reality, plan for reality, mitigate reality before it arrives. Currently, the government officials of California and federally are starting to draw up severe drought contingency plans for California based upon a 52% certainty that by September of next year, 2019, there will be insufficient water. Let's have a little look at politics. President Trump is a lot of things. What he isn't is a high-grade intellectual. As much as I think the president's a mentally ill lunatic, he is correct. One of the things that they need to do urgently in California and Canada, and areas of Canada that are drying out rapidly, is to produce and build huge fire breaks. Now, the maintenance of these fire breaks is on a scale that would rival wartime efforts. This isn't talking about chopping a couple of trees. This is clear cutting and maintaining no bush at all in huge tracts of land. So when fires do break out, it cannot spread to the entire tree of the forest. Yeah, that's good. What about talking about stuff in a political manner when the actual people are dying as you talk about it? I find that kind of uncomfortable. Now, obviously the left wing have leapt all over this and they're very upset, and the right wing's also very upset. But the truth of the matter is, water policy is a factor, population is a factor, forestry management is a factor. They're all factors that are allowing human-caused climate change to make the situation infinitely worse. And yet, nobody really is doing anything about it. Now, whatever you think about President Trump, and he has stimulated the economy because corporations like no control and they don't like having to pay for waste, and they don't like paying taxes to support the economy, so they love him, and so people think they're better off because the stock market's a lot more and corporates are making more money. But on an individual basis, I'm sure as heck not better off. But I live in Canada, so you can blame Trudeau. The truth of it is that when you are claiming that Finland rakes their forests of leaves so they don't have any firestorms, what you're saying is you're ignoring the fires that occurred in Alberta, BC, Norway and Sweden and Russia in very similar type northern areas to Finland. Finland was just lucky. Climate has weather patterns. The weather patterns have been very, very altered in the last 2 years, and a lot of climate scientists are panicking. Scientists think, that we have 12 years to actually stop the destruction of hundreds of millions of lives. Other people think we have a couple of months, maybe a year or two. Other people think we have 10 years. I don't know how long we have, no idea. What I'm saying is the inability to accept the fact that burning so much gasoline and cutting so many trees and producing so much garbage, stuff we don't need at all, over and over and over, and continually increasing the consumption and the production of this nonsense, is changing the climate, and it's making the place hotter, much, much hotter. And President Trump claiming Finland rakes leaves has made, yet again, both him and sadly the United States of America look like complete and utter morons. And I'm not quite sure why anybody would believe that this is a good thing for the United States. It's certainly not a good thing for California. It's diverting attention from how many people are homeless and dead. And that's where the focus needs to be. Now, of course, in Canada, we're a technological society, so we're using the Roomba to clean our forests. It isn't funny. People are still missing. Hundreds of people are missing. 84 are dead for sure. It's probably going to go higher, much higher than that. And yet the fires are still burning. And nobody's taking it seriously. Certainly the national news is not covering this with anywhere near the seriousness it needs to do. And it's certainly not blaming the cause of human-caused climate change, because politically advertisers don't like it, and a certain percentage of the population are so ignorant of basic science and the current data that they firmly believe that the planet is not warming up year by year, that the oceans are not warming up year by year. They cannot and refuse to see the fact that this is a catastrophic climate change. Is it going to be an abrupt climate change? Most people think so. Most people actually right now think this is the early sign of it. All I'm saying is, don't deny California is in drought when it clearly is. Don't deny that human-caused climate change is making the planet hotter when it clearly is. And take some preps for this. Don't just sit back and go, we're going to have an ice age because the planet's wobbling, or there's a binary star system, or the Maunder effect is magically going to affect the entire globe this time and make us a lot colder and it'll be an ice age. The smooth and slick anti-science channels out there have brainwashed people. Big oil has spent hundreds of millions of dollars brainwashing people, putting doubt there where the science actually has no doubt. Human-caused climate change is real. It's coming now. It's affecting now in ways that you must be incredibly cognitively dissonant of to actually think it's not happening. New York has smog from a fires in California. Almost 100 people die in a modern technological society with good firewatch systems. Sure, those failures of warning, sure, those failures to respond, but come on, guys and girls. If you deny human-caused climate change, at this point, with the evidence available, you must be very willful in looking at only a certain type of media. You really do need to research this and accept the fact that our planet is warming up. We're going to have catastrophic weather and natural disaster. And we need to be prepared for it. Whether you agree with human-caused climate change or not is somewhat irrelevant. You're not a scientist. Your opinion is just a religious perspective. It isn't science. And what is science is that human-caused climate change is here, it's real, and it's going to kill. It's going to kill a lot of people. And it's going to kill them in a short period of time. And it's going to cause massive immigration on a scale that, to quote people, is biblical. But I just want to end this with one thing, and you won't like this, but I'm going to end it with it anyway. In 2009, the then US Secretary of Energy Stephen Chu, who happens to be a Nobel Prize winning physicist. A physicist, he has a PhD, and he won a Nobel Prize in physics, stated this about climate change in California. I don't think the American public has gripped in its gut what could happen. We're looking at a scenario where there's no more agriculture in California. And he added, I don't actually see how they can keep their cities going. So wake up. It's time you woke up. Human-caused climate change is real. It's happening. It's going to affect society in major ways. It's going to affect society in major ways this year and next year. Due to human-caused climate change, Canada has lost most of its potato crop this year. It doesn't take many massive crop failures in America and Canada before the rest of the world starts starving. And then what happens? In the spring of 2012, we saw rebellions all across the poorer nations of the world. We'll see that again. And since 2012, we've seen massive immigration from the poor areas to the richer areas of the world in a desperate attempt to improve their lives. When the food drops a little bit more than it's dropping right now, we're going to have a massive, massive problem. Get with it. Remember, in SHTF, tomorrow will always be worse than today unless you prep realistically. Toodles.